2025 will always be a rather memorable year for me, but one of the main reasons why is I have put my foot down and said I'm going to become a competitive racer, a part of the Gran Turismo 7 Sport Mode. Early in the year, I had participated in a couple of rounds of the Nations Cup in Exhibition 2, but I really wanted to see how competitive I really was by participating in all 6 rounds of the Nations Cup. When Exhibition 3 was announced, occurring between mid-October and early November, I thought this was the perfect opportunity to see how I would fare. Of course, a little bit ago, I posted a video about, up in here, posted a video discussing my adventure becoming a driver rating B driver and all of its ups and downs, but more importantly, why I wanted to do that is so I could become a participant in the GT2 League. So join me as I discuss a recap of Exhibition 3 and how I fared in the Nations Cup. And I'll actually post another video link here because I kind of did describe the first couple of rounds of the Nations Cup where I had a particular rival that I had ran into a couple of times, so I'll save you the stories there. But first couple of rounds of the Red Bull Ring didn't go as well as I wanted to until the second attempt where I was leading the race and then was knocked off course and finished podium place there. And then for the next round in Suzuka, it was a very competitive, very dirty driving kind of day, and one of the races I managed to attempt a near double overtake going into turn 1 with unfortunately very little success, but both races very memorable. So let us pick up the journey, pick up the story here in round 3 in Monza. Beginning our journey in round 3 of no chicane Monza in the 1988 Porsche 962C. This was a very challenging course for the fact that you had to get each and every corner just right and get your speed perfectly, because if you had a poor exit out of just one corner, you would lose immense amount of time. With slipstream turned all the way up, it was a life or death situation here that each corner mattered, and there are only about 5 or 6 times that you would actually brake. So coming into the first major complex, I'm well and back, could not qualify well enough, and sure as you would have it, luck was on my side for this opening lap. A massive amount of cars collided. I was able to slip through, and only a couple of corners later, some more accidents happened, and I find myself going all the way from the back of the pack, all the way up to a podium place pretty quickly. What became even crazier is that with some more penalties happening up on the front, I was very easily fighting for second place, and I was not expecting this amount of luck considering how poorly I qualified. And I was noticing that I was seconds off pace from the world record holders, and I thought that it would be, the other drivers around me would be sloppy enough that I'd be able to kind of blend in with the pack, but it turns out that this was an incredibly competitive race that everyone seemed to have the car figured out just perfectly, and I just wasn't getting it. So to be quite frank, I'm actually surprised how long I was able to hold on, but as you would have it, I would just be getting these random penalties. I'd just be having these little mistakes that would be losing some time here and there and losing some more time here and there. And sure enough, with each and every mistake, the pack behind was actually making up some great pace. I would have somebody pass me, and then the next person behind would be less than a second behind, and then they would pass, and then the next person behind them would be less than a second behind. So it's like, as soon as they saw me tumbling down the order, it's like sharks that smelled blood in the water. They saw opportunities being handed to them, and they were not going to turn them away. More mistakes turned into more mistakes, and I finally find myself in 9th out of 12 places on the last lap, thinking that this was probably where I belong, considering that, if I just didn't have those mistakes, I would probably be a little bit higher, honestly. And then it turned out that, again, luck was not quite done with me. Coming into the chicane, we've got some accidents, and I was able to make up yet some more places, getting up into 7th place. Person behind needing to make up multiple seconds in the last couple of corners. Turned out that I was able to hold on just enough to finish in 7th place. So I'll give you a glimpse of our points totals here. The first 2 races I actually did pretty okay, or should I say the first couple of rounds. But then when we get into this round, my driver rating had fallen quite dramatically, and I was only able to get only a handful of points for the 3rd round. That being said, I was still feeling rather cheerful, considering I was in the top 150 in the country and within the top 200 or so in the region. But more importantly, I was within the top 3 in my state of Wisconsin. Round 4 occurred on Grand Valley Highway reverse in the Red Bull X 2019 on a Saturday that I didn't have a whole lot of time to practice, so I was quite concerned about what would happen given the circumstances that other people might have had maybe more practice than me. As we're coming into the first couple of corners, I actually realized that even the couple of laps of practice that I had using traction control led me to have a little bit more of a competitive edge against my competitors. For whatever reason, it just seemed like that people were thinking that traction control was the devil, and might I tell you, that was a mistake for them. Numerous times throughout this race, when tires would be dying and fading away, they would simply spin out of my way, and I just felt competitive. I had a good qualifying lap, and just no one seemed to be able to get this course and this car just right, so I actually was doing very well for once. Getting quite close to the podium, I eventually have a couple of mistakes of my own, but just this one here where I go a little bit wide and fall off the track into the sand and the dirt a little bit. In the early stages of the course of the races, these mistakes can be incredibly catastrophic, as here I lose 2 positions. If this simple mistake would have happened later in the race where there would have been massive gaps between different rivals, I wouldn't have lost a place, but here I'm losing 2, and now I am on the offensive. For the first time in a while, I had some incredible amounts of fun. This was a very competitive lobby with racers that were very clean and wanting to be competitive in their own right. So here we are, we're having some great racing. I cannot emphasize this enough. The racing was just extraordinary, where you're just on a knife edge with this incredibly twitchy and very difficult to drive vehicle, driving against some other people dealing with the same issues, but somehow, some way, we're all able to keep our noses clean, and we had a 4-way fight on our hands. As adrenaline pumping and as exhilarating as it was for the first few laps, eventually it kind of simmered down a little bit, and then I started to realize this was kind of like being in a DRS train, like some F1 drivers have to deal with, where you have somebody that maybe not being at the top of their game and just kind of holding up everybody else. We all didn't want to do these massive, brave dives down on the inside if it was going to lead to accidents or issues of our own where we'd spin out and just ultimately lose more places, considering that there were more people involved and very nearby. We were just trying our best to keep it nice and clean, and if somebody had a mistake, we'd try our best to capitalize on it. But interestingly enough, the mistakes just kind of stopped all of a sudden. And then as the pit window started to open up a bit, the mistakes themselves started as well, as people were dealing with dying tires and forgetting that traction control was a tool at their disposal. Some mistakes were being led up and led into the battles, and then suddenly we're able to make up places and start getting into some clear air. Since I started on medium tires, I knew for a fact that I wasn't going to be as competitive as those on the softs who were able to just take off into the distance. But the thing that I had a competitive edge on was the fact that, 1, I knew how to use traction control, but 2, I knew that the mediums would definitely be holding on a little bit longer than the softs. So maybe in those moments that people who on soft tires who would be falling off sooner, who may have to pit sooner, I felt like I would be able to make up my time there. Finally, after 15 laps, I decided now is the time to pit. No pit lines, please. Medium, no. Before we go any further, for those who know this event inside and out, might have noticed my grave mistake. The rules and the regulations state that you need to have 2 different compounds, and if I'm starting on mediums and finishing on mediums, that wasn't going to be met. So keep that in the back of your mind. Coming out of the pits in positions a little bit lower than I wanted, I now had to make up a little bit of ground. Thankfully, though, that was quite easy, as people were still needing to pit, and people were still making mistakes. Now, in all honesty, the second half of this race was actually quite uneventful, because as people were really struggling with their tires or dealing with the fact that they didn't practice as much as they should have, there's a group of people that really did their homework and just took off into the distance, knew exactly what strategy to do. But here I was, kind of in the middle of nowhere in 4th place. Not that I'm complaining, but it was just kind of lonely. 3rd place being, well, I don't know, 30, 40 seconds ahead, and then 5th place being 11, 12, 13 seconds behind. I knew that all I had to do is just keep it clean and keep my nose clean from any mistakes. And then finally, on the final lap, yes! 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 Oh, what? What did I forget? Multiple compounds. Oh, god damn it. Yes, so the tire compound issue came back to haunt me, which was actually not that much of an issue as I thought it was going to be. There were so many people had so many mistakes and so many problems throughout their races that they were finishing multiple laps below the rest of us. But with the tire compound issue, I did technically lose 1 place, but with the 2-minute more or multiple lap gap below me, that 2-minute penalty didn't really do anything. So now after 4 rounds, I had achieved another 53 points. Yes, I could have had more if I had known which tire compounds to really use in this race. But at this point, this is still kind of an issue because my driver rating had fallen so much that the points that I'm getting, even at a top level, were really not satisfactory. I was doing so well in those 2 first opening rounds that finishing in 7th and 8th or whatever just didn't really seem to have any issues on my points. But now that my driver rating was lower, we have some work to do. Round 5 was Autodrome Lago Maggiore West with the Group 3 cars. Now, considering that in one of the sport mode events, as I had grinded out this track, but with the Group 4 version, the GT by Citroën, I had felt confident in this course. So choosing the group variant of the car, I figured I had a competitive edge, considering I had more than enough practice with this track. Get to qualifying, and I don't do a great performance, but then when we get to the race, again, luck was on my side, and was able to move up the field quite quickly, and in the first stint, was able to fight for 4th and 5th quite easily. I lost a little bit of time during the round of pit stops, but I was still feeling very competitive and was still up in the top part of the group. But as traffic was getting involved, I was starting to lose a little bit of pace and now started to be more on the defensive side than I was on the offensive. And then we get to this moment. You're a piece of Thank you for taking me out. Love it. God damn it. Obviously, I was incredibly angry over the fact that I had just lost many places and lost out on this race. But if we take a look at the replay here, I think we can kind of consider it a racing incident. I wasn't being quite clean myself, but then the other driver forgot to leave a little bit of room for me and had a little bit of a collision there. But again, like I said, it didn't look like it was anything malicious from the competitor side or on my opponent's side. I think I'll accept that one. And just trying to make up as many places as possible, I was now on the offensive again, and we get to the last part of the course. I've been following this person's shadow for multiple laps, and here we are coming down to the last set of corners. Race to the line. Oh! Ah! Oh! Look at that! Wow! By me having the inside line and my opponent giving me quite a bit of space, I had just barely a better run up to the finish line, and I don't think I've ever had a more close finish with anyone before. Man, was that awesome. But only finishing in 9th place, I knew I had some work to do. Going for the second attempt, I was not as lucky as I was in the first round. After a few mistakes, we had an early incident that sealed the fate of the race. Thanks. As much as I want to blame this guy for ruining my race already wasn't all that great because I had a couple of mistakes and my pace just wasn't there against my rivals. And I spent the majority of this race actually on the defense, as I had a couple of people that were sitting behind me quite close for multiple laps on end, so we were just seeing kind of a game of chicken. Who would have the first mistake and who would be able to get these last couple of positions. And it turns out, unfortunately, that would have been me. Oh my god, these tires! While I was able to make up a couple of places nearing the end, the ultimate mistake that I made was that I went into the pits a lap early on mediums, and when I came out into lap 12 with the softs, my softs just died on that last lap. If I would have went in a little bit later, I would have had fresh softs for the entire last stint, and by me going in a little bit too early, I had experienced the tire degradation that ultimately costed 2 places at the end. At the end of round 5 with a mere 44 points, I am feeling horrible at this point. My driver level is just on the cusp of going into C. I tried some sport mode events to try to raise my driver level, which ultimately had the inverse effect. So these points are just killing me here. To turn this around, I'm really going to need a miracle. Round 6 at Le Mans was going to be a unique one with only a small selection of hypercars from the late 2010s. Only 7 laps at Le Mans. Everything here is to play for. Now, doing the first attempt, I started on mediums, and it was an uneventful dry race. Managed to bag a couple of points, but then I decided, you know, let's give it one more shot. After a very good qualifying, I noticed something. In the pit lane, it's pelting with rain, so I better switch to intermediates for this race, or I'm going to get screwed. And funny enough, a number of people didn't catch the switch, because as the race was starting, it is chucking down with rain, and I'm feeling good. Why did you do that? Those early race collisions are really the most dramatic and the most detrimental that you can experience, because going from 4th all the way down to 9th, that kind of sealed where I was for the rest of the race. There was a chance that I could have been fighting for podium positions, but because somebody was braking 300 yards before the turn, I got screwed and I didn't have enough time to react. But this race was so interesting because as the race was chucking down, people on their intermediate tires were starting to get worried that maybe they should have chosen wet tires. And as the laps went away, I noticed that my gap to first wasn't increasing or wasn't decreasing, it was stagnant, which was actually great because that meant that I was pacing where everybody else was. It means that I wasn't falling away, and that was kind of the more bigger picture thing that I was worried about these days. So as people were struggling with their tires in this deep, heavy rain, I kind of felt like just an incredible race car driver because I was taking these risks and saying, I'm going to trust my intermediate tires. There are going to be corners that I'm going to brake early for, but I'm not going to be as cautious as I typically am. I feel like I've got the pace here. And it was interesting as it was, for those rainstorm moments that were fit for heavy, wet tires, I was gaining time in my intermediates. That being said, though, these spontaneous heavy rainstorms weren't consistent enough, and as they fell away and the rain became typical or normal, everybody got their intermediate tires right into temperature, and my advantage had disappeared. But as the sun rose, we were encountering a very unique situation. Were we able to finish the race on dying intermediates on a drying racing line? Was there a rainstorm imminently coming that we'd have to change over to heavy wet tires or refresh our intermediate tires? Or were the intermediate dying tires dying so fast that we'd need to change the medium tires in order to save pace? Even though I had lost a couple of places at the beginning and I was starting to make them up, and I was now on the defense once again, but everyone was very close by, and all I knew that was about to happen is that a single mistake would make me tumble down the order, and I had to make sure that that didn't happen. That being said, of all mistakes that I've had, honestly, this was probably the best one, because I had only a couple of seconds being lost, but the pack was so close together that it was still fairly detrimental as I lost more than a number of places. Now, as other drivers are getting penalties and losing pace and making mistakes of their own, I was able to make up a couple of places, and then we have this incredible moment. Thanks. Are you guys serious? Are you happy that you did that? I broke at my typical spot, but somebody decided to just not brake at all and crashed into me, and this collision made the person behind them clash into them, running all sorts of people off the course and giving them 2 major penalties for car collisions. Now, in this mess, they were able to get past me, and I was still trying my best to get back onto the road, but I knew here that all I had to do was just wait it out until the penalty line, and I would be able to gain 2 places. Now, there are a number of times where them fighting amongst themselves got a little bit messy, and I got very close, and I was debating going for the pass. I decided to play it safe and stay behind them and not get involved with their fighting, because, again, if I got involved, the penalty for having an accident with them would have been much greater than if I would have just stayed behind and just let off the gas a couple of corners early. As the penalty line approached, something weird happened. Oh, the 2 of them. Ha! I managed to hold on to the end and finish up into 6th, but before I was able to celebrate, I had a couple of questions. I gotta see that replay. What the hell happened? Okay, so what happened? Oh, so it was a chain reaction. The engine went. Wow. Now that the championship is over, I decided to go back and tally up some points. So as the points went, I was 241st in Western Hemisphere points standing for the GT2 League. In the United States, I was 177th, but most importantly, in my local area of Wisconsin, I was in 3rd. Now, what was cool is that all that considered, the best prize of it all was the fact that nobody else played in my county, so I had achieved 1st place in my county. Now, I would be a little bit disappointed to be only getting 3rd in Wisconsin, considering I was 2nd in pretty much all the championship up until that last round, and then somebody snuck up by. But I want to give you this. If we take a look at GT1, GT2, and GT3 leagues, there was a total of 59 people that have participated in Exhibition 3 in the Nations Cup in the state of Wisconsin. So if we take a look at the results here, and if we include everybody from GT1 all the way down to GT3, I placed 10th overall in the state of Wisconsin. Now, some people would say, oh my God, that's crazy. I'm going to go a step further though. If we take a look at the points values, you can note in GT1 there are multiple individuals that only did a couple of races, only got a couple of 100 points. So if we change up the championship and change it up by points earned overall, I can say I got 7th in the state of Wisconsin. So that's my claim to fame right now. In this one championship, I placed 7th in Wisconsin. So no, I'm not going to say here that I'm the 7th best driver in Wisconsin, because of course, we're not accounting for the fact that this is just one championship, the fact that we're not accounting for that this is within one game, the account, all that kind of fun stuff. Because I know that there are drivers, real racing drivers from Wisconsin that are damn better than me, that I'd ever be. But for this one championship, in this one moment of time, I'm 7th best. I think I'm going to use this energy and use this motivation to not stop here. My goal is that maybe for next exhibition, I'm trying to fight at the top of GT2. Maybe I can say that I'll be the best in Wisconsin in the GT2 league itself. So I gotta get some work done and get my driver level rating up, because hopefully one day I would really like to be an A-level driver and compete in GT1. To say that I am within the top 10,000 best players in the world would be an absolute monumental achievement. But to say that I'm 7th best in Wisconsin in this one championship, I'll enjoy it for a little bit. How about that? Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to check out my Fanatec affiliate link in the description down below. And don't forget to check out my merchandise store at aweo.com/store/Matt51Westby. Of course, thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful day today. Take care. Bye.